Welcome to episode 172 of the Daniel Yoris podcast, 10-year solo recap. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast. Thanks for being here. This episode is a special one to me. It will be a little bit sentimental as this week, actually June 9th, which this episode is coming a little bit past that, but June 9th, 2024 marks 10 years since I had the knee surgery that changed my life and brought us to where we are today and a lot of things. And I'd say that, a little bit extremely, but also not so much. If you have listened to any episodes before or followed me on social media, you will have certainly heard me talk about this here and there, as it's a pretty pivotal part of my life and influences a lot of what I do now and why I do things the way that I do things and the way that I do things and the way that I think about things in life and fitness as well. So I'm going to kind of recap that story, kind of take you through it. And of course, there'll be some tangible takeaways and little lessons and nuggets and stuff along the way. It will help explain, again, why I do things the way that I do things that I've learned about training, things I've learned about nutrition, things that I've learned about recovery, things that I've learned about movement, all through that and some thoughts in the future. And it will certainly give some insight to yourself if you deal with any types of injuries, any type of training things, setbacks. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, not a surgeon. If you're injured, this is not your source. I'm not going to solve your problems in this podcast. Go get things dealt with correctly. But hopefully you'll gain some insights to help you navigate that path, because it is quite difficult. And that also just reminds me to, I'm going to make a little note to myself here to make a note on how to navigate the medical system, because that was a part of it here. So 10 years ago, June 9th, 2014, I was 19 years old. For those of you who struggle with math like me, that makes me 29 years old today. We'll be turning 30 later this year. But the story starts actually well before that. When I was 11 or 12, I don't remember because it happened so many times, but when I was 11 or 12, for the first time I ever injured my knee. I was playing soccer. I jumped up. No one was around me, kind of like, received a pass that was in the air, came down, and when I landed, my knee just like crumbled and I just fell to the ground like a pile of bricks. I had no idea what happened. All I can remember of that was being very confused as to like how I fell and being in excruciating pain. We went to the hospital afterwards. My dad took me to the hospital, and I don't even exactly remember what they said. I remember them being kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, well, growing boy, like these things happen. And it was kind of like brushed off as like not a big deal. Went to physio. It seemed to be fine after that. And again, it's a one-off. You don't really know. They kind of brush it off. It's just a growing thing, whatever. And then it proceeded to continue to happen again and again and again. And this was in both knees. I'm pretty sure the first time it happened, it was on my left knee, which was the worst one and the one that I ended up having a surgery on. But it happened in both knees like many times, at least 5 times each side, but probably more like 10 times. I lost count because it happened so many times over the next 8 years leading up to the surgery in 2014. So what we ended up discovering about that was that my patella, which is the kneecap, was dislocating and then popping itself back in, which is a term known as a subluxation, where like it goes out of place and it comes back in. It stretches all the ligaments. I never actually tore any ligaments somehow, but no ACL injury, no MCL injury, which are like the common knee injuries that you hear about, or meniscus. Never had any of those. Those are all fine. But my kneecap was just like loosey-goosey, like an old elastic that was like stretchy, but it wouldn't snap back into place. That's kind of like what my kneecap was like. If you took your fingers and moved it around, like you could easily pop my kneecap out. It was no issue. So that was a mess. Lots of different physiotherapists and various manual therapists of all kinds. Some were good, some were really not good. And that tried to help me, and a lot of it was dismissed. Just get stronger. Strengthen the knee. You're growing. Your muscles have to catch up to your bones, and obviously I wasn't growing that much. Like, I'm not that tall, but your muscles got to catch up to your bones as you're growing, and it'll fix itself, and you just got to keep getting stronger and strengthen it, and do this, that, and the other thing. Do these 7 exercises, whatever it was. A lot of that. despite all that, and I was like pretty diligent with all that stuff, it just kept happening. So it eventually came to a point where I was like, okay, I'm not growing anymore. Like, I'm an adult now, 18, 19 years old. Like, I'm not getting any taller. This is not a growing thing anymore. Like, my muscles have, like, I'd added muscle in that time. By this time, like, when we started kind of getting into the surgical process, like, I had started lifting weights. I was in university. Like, I was starting to figure out my way around the gym. I had added a pretty significant amount of muscle. Mostly upper body, to be fair. Like, I skipped a lot of leg days, but it wasn't necessarily because I was just being a bro and skipping leg days. It was just because, like, my legs were hurting. So I couldn't do it. Didn't know how to train, didn't know how to train around it. Like, I did what I could, but I was always injured or rehabbing from an injury. And this now may sound like a bit of an excuse, but it's also kind of legit. And it's like, this is the explanation, again, / excuse that I give myself as to, like, why I'm not more jacked than I am. And it's because I spent so much time injured that I don't even know if there's been more than, for sure there's been one time, and it was like the COVID year, where it's like a full 12 months in a row of like no injuries, no setbacks to training. But aside from that, I'm not sure in my life that I've even had another like consecutive 12 months of training just to build muscle and get stronger and get faster and get whatever. So when you don't have that, like you lose out a lot of gains. You go up and you train hard and you get some results, and then you kind of come back down and go up and down and up and down and up and down. And in those earlier years, that's when you can really put on size and really put on strength and really build up a foundation. And when those kind of keep getting cut down and taken away from you, it's tough to keep coming back from it, both from like a mental side of things, but also just like physically, like you're losing out on so much training time. I've been training and in the gym for over 10 years, but really it's probably been closer to like 5 years. It's just been 10 years on the calendar, but mixing all the injuries, it's been a lot less. Anyways, all that to say, if you're a younger person / if you are new to training, try your best to be as consistent as you can. Like, stack up as much training time as you can before life gets in the way. Knock on wood that an injury doesn't get in the way and you don't run into issues like I have and do. Stack up that training time, because it is extremely valuable. And the earlier you can get that, the bigger the base you can build up early in your training career, you will be way better off down the road. So the last time that I injured my knee, I was actually in the gym, and I was following like a silly kind of workout program. And this is part of, again, I was starting to train and learn things and experiment with things. I was following a workout program that had me doing like a minute of cardio between every set. And the theory was like to stack up a bunch of cardio. You get like 20 or 30 minutes of cardio within your workouts. So you're doing jumping jacks or whatever, like little things like that, not like running to the treadmill, but just do jumping jacks or kettlebell swings or some type of kind of cardio-ish exercise during your rest, which is not a very good idea, by the way, and not because I got injured during it, but just to explain why I was doing it. And I stepped on like a busy gym, stuff going around, people don't put their shit away, all that kind of stuff, which I fucking hate and can't stand. And this is part of the reason, but not even the biggest reason. But like, someone had left something out. I was kind of moving to navigate around some people doing a jumping jack or something like that, stepped on the side of a plate or a dumbbell, something that was left out on the floor, and knee crumbles and away it goes. And by this time, like, it had happened so many times that like it hurt a lot. But like, I was just fucking pissed. And that was the thing more than anything. I was just so angry. It wasn't about the pain anymore, because I had dealt with that same pain so many times. I knew exactly what happened. I could feel it. It's just a horrible, like, emotional feeling. I can still kind of like, you can tell that I'm getting emotional because I'm starting to talk really fast, and I get really angry about it, because that feeling is just, it's horrible. And it's not because, again, it's not the physical pain. The physical pain was one thing, but you learn to deal with that, and you kind of just suck it up, and it is what it is, and it's fine. Maybe I developed a high pain tolerance through all that, which I think I do have a high tolerance to pain, but regardless, it was because every time it happened, I knew that meant 3 to 6 months of rehabbing this just to get back to where I was. And you're just starting to get into a groove, you're training, you're feeling good, the knee goes, and fuck, all right, and step back, 3-6 months. And If that happens once, fine. But when it happens 10 plus times in less than that years, like you're getting really far behind. You're getting really far behind. And it's not far behind anyone else. It's just far behind yourself. So it sucked. Anyways, this is the part that I made a note to myself just to talk about right now. This is important to know. If you are in Canada, our medical system is such that you can't just pay to go get what you want. You can't just get what you want done. You have to go through your family doctor or your GP to get a referral for surgery, to get a referral for any type of specialists, any of that kind of stuff. Now, there's obviously a good reason for checks and balances. Because the system is quote unquote free, which it's absolutely not free. You pay for it in your taxes, so don't let anyone ever tell you that it's free. But because you don't pay for it out of pocket, if people were dictating their own health and booking, multiple MRIs and seeing every specialist that they want every month, obviously it breaks down and it can no longer work like that. However, when you know that something is wrong with you and the gatekeepers and the system and the powers that be are kind of holding you back, like my doctor was saying that, oh, the knee is still not that bad. Like it had happened again, 10, 15 plus times by now. And I was saying, hey, I need to talk to a surgeon. I need to talk to someone else about this. My therapist has told me to seek surgery for this. There's no way this is normal. It can't keep going like this. And he just said, no, it's fine. I begged and begged and begged. And finally he agreed. And one of the things, this is a tip for you, is that when you start to, you have to kind of play up the story a little bit. You have to tell them about how it's impacting your quality of life. Not just that you're in pain, not that it hurts. I can't do this. You can make up some other stuff that it's about. You can again, slippery slope and take this with a grain of salt and whatever. But now, especially now, you play the mental health card in there and you use that, which is not a good thing. It's definitely mental health stuff, definitely real, not to be belittled and all that stuff. But when you need to get something done, you need to kind of use the cards at your disposal. So don't go there first. But if you need to use it, it's a tool there for you in navigating the system. Anyways, finally, he agrees to send me to a surgeon. My cousin had torn her ACL and saw a surgeon who was really good. So we wanted to get referral to that surgeon. At the time, he was one of the team doctors for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So pretty good guy, well regarded, well liked, all that kind of stuff. When I saw him, he's, doing his examination on my knee, moving me around, poking and prodding, asking questions and all this stuff. And after a little while, he goes, do you mind if I have some students who are here shadowing today, some med school students. Do you mind if I have them come into the examination room and show them your knee? Because we don't get to see knees this bad very often. I was like, oh, fucking great. So here was the regular GP saying oh, it's, no problem, no issue, you're fine. And here's the knee specialist guy saying wow, can I display how bad your knee is? Because as a teaching moment for these students, we don't get to see stuff like this often. So anyways, that's that. Now, one step further than that, this guy, again, doctor for the Leafs, not a nobody doctor, not a new guy to the game. He said, I know what your problem is. I don't do the type of surgery that you need to. There's only one guy in Ontario, which is the province that I live in, who does this type of surgery. I said, wow, okay, crazy. So we get an appointment with him, and that's another year away because of that's just the way the system works. So we set that up and we get that going. Now, for any nerds out there or other trainers, health professionals of any kind, if you want to look into it, the surgery that I needed was called a Fulkerson osteotomy. Again, very, very uncommon. To this day, I don't even know anyone or have heard of anyone else who's even got that surgery. And some people that I talk to in the industry have never even heard of it. So it's not very common for sure. But that's what it's called if you want to look that up. Side note, if you do have to ever get a surgery for anything, it's not a good idea to look up that surgery on YouTube before you go get it, because you think that surgery is very dainty and delicate and whatever. It's a lot more like a carpentry project than you think it is. They're using specialized tools, obviously, but saws and hammers and things to crack your body around, and they got to make sure that it's stable after. So they have to test it to make sure that it's strong afterwards. So, it's way less dainty than you think it is. And then you're just on the table there while you're asleep, and they're doing their thing to you. And it's all helpful, but it's just not for the faint of heart. So word of warning. Now, I was a little bit blindsided by the recovery to the surgery. They tell you things, and again, it's 10 years ago, so my memory of it is a little bit fuzzy, plus all the painkillers after, which I'll get into. And there's a lot of information to intake and whatever, but I feel like I don't remember knowing how rough the recovery was going to be until it started happening. And this could just be that, it's words at first, and you just say, yeah, whatever, that's fine. And then when it's real, it's a lot different. So after the surgery, I came home. My leg was in like a brace, so that I couldn't bend my knee. And I was, from there on out, non-weight bearing in my left leg for 13 weeks, which is about 3 months. Non-weight bearing means that you can't like step on it or put any weight on it or put it on the floor. So my left foot didn't touch the floor for 3 months, which is wild. And for the first 2 weeks, I couldn't even bend my knee. It was in this brace, and I was allowed to like take it off just to kind of like let my skin breathe a little bit, but I couldn't bend it. And if I had to move it, go to the bathroom or whatever, like I had to put it on to make sure that I didn't bend it. And then every couple of weeks thereafter, I think it was like 15 degrees or so of knee bending that I was allowed to do until it got up to like full knee bending. So it was pretty rough. And when I was even, if you've never been put under like full anesthetic, it's quite an interesting experience. You know what's going to happen. You know that you're going to go to sleep, and you think you want to try and like tough it out or try and act, I can beat this, and just to see, there's literally no chance. Like I remember very distinctly trying to like the nurses getting everything ready, and you're in the room and they're about to start their thing, and she says, okay, so I'm going to put the mask on you, just breathe normally, and then you'll go to sleep, and then you'll wake up in the recovery room, and that's it. And I said, okay, do I need to do anything special? She said, nope, I'll just put the mask on, you breathe normally, all good. I said, okay, let's see. Within like a second, you're out, and then the next thing you know, you're just awake. It's not like when you actually go to sleep, like at night, you kind of have a semblance of like how much time has passed, or when you take a nap, you're like, oh, okay, I was asleep for like a while. With the anesthetic, it's as if you just like nothing happened. It's as if someone snapped their fingers, but 3-4 hours had passed. It was a long surgery. Like several hours had passed. People were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. My body's cut open, hammering away at my knee, and all this crazy stuff. And you have no memory of it. You didn't feel anything. You have nothing at all. It's wild. Then you come home. You think you're okay. You think you're in like the right headspace, and it's not even like being drunk. You're drunk and you're kind of like don't know what you're doing and you forget stuff. It's not like that at all. Like you think you're clear headed, but you literally have no idea like what's going on, and you forget stuff. Like even reminiscing about this with my brothers the other day, he's like, yeah, this time you were like throwing up from dinner. I was like, no, I wasn't. Like, what are you talking about? And he said, yeah, you came home and you were so looped from the stuff, and you were throwing up and whatever. And I didn't remember that at all. Which then gets into a discussion just about painkillers. And one thing that I would do differently if I could go back, or if I had to go back, was I would take way less painkillers than I did. And in fact, I would try and take almost none. And I didn't take a lot. I didn't take any of the Oxycontin ones. I think those are like the stronger ones. I think they gave some to me, but I never took any of them. I just like the regular Tylenol 3s, which I think still have codeine in them. I'm not an expert. I don't know. I think they still have it. But even still, it kind of like definitely numbs the pain and definitely works for that. But it also numbs your memory, your emotions. Like my memory of that first week and a half, 2 weeks is like very, very scattered. Like I don't really remember a lot. If you feel nothing, you don't feel happy or sad. It's a numbing of everything, and it's quite freaky. And I can definitely see how the stronger versions of those medications, when someone is unchecked, leads to very serious and detrimental addiction and issues down the line. But just to fully experience the emotions of all of that, I would take less painkillers, because it does become routine. It's like, in the morning, you're supposed to take it every 12 hours, and they kind of tell you to take it, and it's not a problem if unchecked or if checked, and taking things properly and whatnot. But I would take almost none, as little as possible, if I could, if I had to do it again. But to each their own. To each their own with that. So listen, it's the summertime. I'm 19 years old. I was active, lots of social stuff going on, friends doing stuff, going here and there, cottage, whatever. And I'm sitting at home. I literally couldn't move. I couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself. Like we set up a bed in the living room. Thankfully, the Euro Cup was on, or maybe it was the World Cup. No, Euro Cup is this year, so it would have been the World Cup was on. Watched every single game, played video games. It just did nothing. I was sitting in bed, couldn't even move, couldn't feed myself, couldn't do anything. To the point, and this is where, now we're starting to come to some of the appreciation for movement. I mean, just kind of giving a timeline for a little bit, but appreciation of movement. And this is a story. And I think I told this in a very early episode of the podcast, but nonetheless, there was, again, I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself because I couldn't walk. I couldn't bend my leg. I couldn't move anything. So imagine trying to sit on a toilet, without bending your leg. It's not easy. Or I couldn't stand. You couldn't balance on anything. I was very, very, not independent. I was very dependent on everyone around me. So, I get up to go to the bathroom, and eventually you kind of figure out how you can move. But I wouldn't do anything without telling anyone, hey, Mom, I'm going to the bathroom, just in case I scream, you know where I am. And I remember one day just being in so much pain, so much discomfort. I'm in the bathroom, and it's I had to call out to my mom to help me, get dressed again, put my pants on. And imagine being a 19-year-old boy, you think you're stronger than the world, you think you're invincible, you're an athlete, your identity is wrapped up in your sport ability and your physical ability, and you're, entering into this kinesiology, sports science, whatever-ish career path, and you can't even put your own pants on. You can't get dressed by yourself. And that memory is it's burned in my brain. There's a post that I've put up before, and a concept that people talk about the reason why you should squat and the reason why you should exercise is so that you can go to the bathroom by yourself, and so that you can, put your clothes on and take a shit by yourself, and do regular, very mundane things by yourself. And it's funny, and it's not real for most people, because most of you listening to this, it's not, yeah, I understand it, but you don't really understand that. There's been a time in my life, and unluckily or luckily, depending how you look at it, it happened when I was very young, where I wasn't able to walk, get dressed, or go to the bathroom by myself. And so I know deeply that those are realistic. That's a realistic possibility. Now, of course, that wasn't a forever sentence for me. I knew that I was going to get better. It wasn't it was going to get better. It wasn't going to be forever, but still, to feel the feelings, the physical feelings and the emotional feelings of wow, I can't even put my own pants on. That's rough. And when you feel that, when you experience that, which I hope you never do, you will want nothing more than to be able to move freely on your own and to be able to just do normal stuff. I wasn't worried about what my squat PR was at that time. I wasn't worried about how much I could bench press or how fast I could run or any of these other, cool and important, but way less important metrics. I was just I hope I can go to the bathroom by myself the next time that I need to go. I hope that if I'm hungry, I can get up and go to the kitchen to get myself some food. I hope that I can take a shower normally. These are the things that you think of. I hope I can go for a walk outside. It's not very cool to aspire to and to have your goal as a 19-year-old boy, but that is that it was the reality. And so when I talk about all this stuff and when I say things like, getting jacked is very cool, but not the most important thing. Being shredded is very cool, but not the most important thing. Like hitting that bench press per hour, super cool, not the most important thing. Like this is where I'm coming from. It's one of the reasons why I think that I'm a little less, or have been less bro than some other guys my age and in my age group and over the past several years of me being a trainer and whatever, over my career, I guess. And it's because I had this experience early on where it's like, yeah, that stuff is cool, but like, man, if you can't move, like that's cool. Like being able to go up the stairs by yourself, like that's awesome. Like these are the things that matter. So that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. And it can be seen as soft. It can be seen as not that cool. It's not that fun to talk about these things, but it's very real. Because I promise you, and I've said this so many times, like the only thing, when you can't move, when your ability to move is taken away from you, like the only thing you will want is to be able to move. And you'll never fully understand that. You might be nodding your head right now, and I agree. I agree with you. Like, yes, like being able to move is a good thing, but it means it hits differently when it happens to you or happens to someone very close to you. So never take that for granted. The best reason to move is because you can, not because of some other things. All the other stuff, super cool. Getting jacked, very cool. Lifting heavier weights than everyone else in the gym, awesome, fucking amazing, go for it. But always make sure that you're healthy and never, ever, ever take your ability to move for granted. So we'll skip forward a little bit here. So it was weeks and weeks and months of just like not being able to do shit by myself, sitting on the couch, not really doing a whole lot. Like I think I did a decent job at managing nutrition. Like I didn't just start eating like a pig and whatever. I also felt like I didn't really need to eat that much because I wasn't moving like at all. My step count on the day was 0. Wasn't low, it was 0 every day. So I feel like I did a decent job. I definitely gained a little bit of weight over this because like, you still eat a couple of times a day and whatever. And as I started moving again, it was, the first time that I walked again, the first time that I put my foot on the ground was also another one of these feelings I'll never forget. It's like I put some weight through my left leg and very little. It's probably like, 25% shift some weight onto that side. And it's like pins and needles up my leg. And it was a crazy feeling. It's like you've been, you're sitting down too long and your leg falls asleep. It's that, but the most intense version of that. And then slowly starting to put more weight on the leg, starting to take a step, starting to, bend the knee, taking a step and get off using the crutches to take a step and take a few steps and go for a 5-minute walk and, walk on my own without someone there, like these kind of things. So that was very difficult, but it was like literally learning to walk again. It was rough. But you work really hard at it, or I worked really hard at it because it was painful and it was difficult and it was discouraging, but I could feel it getting better. And the gains, so to speak, were coming very quickly. And you're working very hard for your freedom. It's like, that is the ultimate motivation, like my freedom to move. Like I'll never work as hard as a fitness goal as I did at that ever again, because I just, I'll never care about my squat or my bench press being heavier as much as I cared about being able to walk again, if that makes sense. Also way more room to improve, right? Because I was at 0 and starting to walk in. So that, So that was the next couple of months. And then it was a whole other year from there of to be able to like work out and play sports and do stuff normally again. Maybe more. It was like more like a year and a half to feel like really normal again. Now, one thing to note here is, again, no weight bearing, no movement, no anything for 3 months. When you don't use it, you lose it. And this is very, very true in fitness and with your muscle. Like my left leg was tiny. Like my thigh was the size of my forearm. It was a little bit gross, honestly. Like I didn't use any of the muscles in my leg for months, and it goes away quick. So this is another reason why I'm an advocate. I don't want to say advocate, but like I think the steroids conversation is is incomplete. And I'm not sure exactly the full answer and how to like all roll this out and whatever, but I think that in certain professional sports, like baseball is probably the number one sport where this makes sense, is that they should allow anabolic steroids and other performance-enhancing drugs in that sport, because one, baseball's not a contact sport, so it's not going to hurt anyone. Versus like football or MMA, like people are going to get hurt for sure. People are using it in those sports and whatever. That's a different conversation. But it being allowed and open is a different thing. No one's going to get hurt in baseball. It will make the sport a little bit more exciting, but most importantly, it will pump private money into researching and developing these drugs and tools. And then what you get from that is more civilian medical uses for that. For someone like me who was in that surgery, had I had something to take or something else to do that would have prevented muscle loss, or at least lessened it, or made it faster or easier to grow it back and to strengthen it again, it would have made the recovery better. It would have made the outcome better. It would have made everything about the surgery and the procedure better. Now, obviously, you don't need to take enough to be a giant monster, and I'm not saying that I wish I used anything because I don't know nearly enough about it, but like with enough private money, you can get some downstream civilian products. And the clearest example or analogy that I can use with this is Formula One. Formula One, racing cars, they spend millions and millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars on research and development for making the cars faster, more efficient, safer, all of these things. Now, your regular car on the road is not driving at 300 kilometers an hour around a corner, but we still need to brake on ice, and we get ABS brakes. ABS braking came from Formula One. There are so many other things that they develop for the pinnacle of that sport or activity that can then get scaled down to like civilian use, like us. So I think there's a strong case for that. And mine wasn't even that bad, but imagine someone who has like who was in a severe car accident. Imagine someone who has some sort of condition, disorder, disease where they're losing muscle mass, or they're types of cancers, or like any number of medical things that could happen. Mine was like the least important of these things, because I was going to go back and it was going to be fine. But there's so many other things that could happen where someone's body is deteriorating, and in addition to whatever other medicine and treatments that they're taking for the thing that is causing that, if they were able to take something that was able to build or maintain their muscle instead of losing it, like that would be extremely helpful. Obviously, there's downsides to steroids, and this is why I'm saying that if we had more private money, research would be better. We'd get better products, better dosages, better understanding of it, and better able to integrate it with whatever other things are going on. So that's kind of where I stand on that. And God forbid, heavy knock on wood, God forbid I ever have to go through something like that again. I will 1000% be looking into those things more for myself, especially with the more bigger popularity of peptides and stuff like that. That is out now. I'm not advocating for these things, and you shouldn't use them, outside of supervision of a medical doctor. Like, they are illegal in many places of the world. So blah, 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 all that disclaimer. But I think that there are uses for it, but I can't impact that. So I don't know if you're someone who has some say in this, or wants to talk about it, or knows someone who can like make something happen here and has some better insight or better ways to kind of like navigate this, please reach out to me, because I'd love to just have that conversation with you. And if I can help in any way, then great. Okay. So where are we now? Now we're 10 years out. It was about a year and a half after all of that. So like almost 2 years after the surgery until I was like, okay, I'm back. I can play sports. I don't really have to think about this too much. I can work out. I can lift weights. I can like do all the stuff. Now we're 8 years past that, right? My knee is pretty good. I will say this. It's not 100%. My left leg is still smaller than my right leg. I don't think it'll ever be equal at this point. It makes me sound like an old man, but like I've got 2 screws that are still in there as part of the repair. When it's like very humid or very cold outside, or like there's a lot of pressure in the air, like for thunderstorms and stuff like that, I feel it. My knee feels tighter and not as good. which again makes me feel very, very old. It's a legit thing what your grandparents are saying when they say, "Oh, my knee hurts, it's going to rain." Like, it's legit. So there's those things. So the things that I do to care for it now is really just regular strength training through a full range of motion and knowing when to pump the brakes. Because I've been injured so many times, because I know the feeling of things so many times, and also because I have a pretty solid understanding of anatomy and chemistry and biomechanics and the way that these things all work now that I've become educated in it and all that stuff. Pretty good at knowing when I can push it, and when something is like, if I push this is an injury. This is not just like a little discomfort kind of thing. Like, I know when I can push through things and I know when I can't. So I've gotten very good at that. And now with that, I push through a lot of things. And I've said this before, but it's very important to push hard in your training when you can. When physically you can, when emotionally you can, when logistically and life schedule allows you to be able to push hard in your training, you got to push hard. Because even if you're not someone like me who perpetually gets injured, be it any type of injury, I've had them all. If you don't get injured, there's always shit that's coming up. And so my excuse for training is that I'm always injured, and so I can't string together 12 months of solid training. For many other people, for yourself, likely, is that there's a time of year where work is busy. Something happens with socially, the holiday season. You're moving houses, you change jobs, the kids, your mom, your grandma, your whatever. Something is happening that's like, okay, I got knocked off the gym. I went on vacation, knocked off the gym. This season of work is really, I got a lot of travel, knocked off the gym. And you can't string months together of training. Now, number one, try and limit those as much as you can, but that's also like pretty difficult because your life is your life. The way to offset that is that when you can, that like, hey, for the next 2 months, there is nothing on the calendar that is going to knock me off. I'm going to fucking nail my 4 or 5 days a week of training. I'm going to nail my nutrition. I'm going to nail my steps. I'm going to nail my sleep. I'm going to nail all this stuff because I know that I can push hard. Because in that third month, it's June now. June, July, I'm going to be pretty good. August, I know that I've got a couple weddings coming up. I'm going on vacation. I've got this, that, and the other thing. I've got some things. I'm going to be off my game. So now that I can push it, you push it, and you give yourself like a buffer almost you give yourself a buffer for your life when life gets in the way of your training and your health and your fitness, because it's going to happen. You can try and limit it, but you'd only do as much as you can. So you got to push harder than you can. And I think I do that fairly well for myself now. I'm good at anticipating when things are going to happen, life schedule aside, but like, I'm really good at being like, okay, I feel good. My body feels good right now. No injuries, no tightnesses, no little twings and whatever. Let's fucking drive it home. And then when something starts creeping in, when something's feeling a little bit more, discomfortable or uncomfortable than it should, when an injury is starting to creep in there, I can just dial it right back. Take a week off, rehab it. Maybe not take a week totally off, but train around it, alter the training, dial back the intensity, whatever it is, but adjust to the thing so that it heals, doesn't become bigger than it has to be, and then you can hammer it again. So that's really the take-home message here, is that no matter what's going on, whether it's injuries, whether it's regular life and social stuff, you got to train hard when you can, because there's always going to be a time when you're not going to be able to train hard. Now, as far as like full range of motion, I'm very big on mobility. I do a lot of mobility in my workouts. My clients all do some mobility work, whether it's in their warm-ups or mixed in their workouts. Some of them don't even realize that they're doing mobility, but they are, because it's important. And really, mobility it's effectively just proper strength training, because just, flexing or not flexing, but stretching and reaching out and holding your, touching the floor or whatever, that's fine. And that's good. But strength in that end range of motion, strength while stretching, that is mobility. That's the thing that's going to keep your joints safe and feeling good and feeling strong and healthy and mobile and all that stuff. So you got to pay attention to that. So full range of motion training as much as possible, with control, with good form. I'm a big stickler on those, because these are the things that keep you healthy. Your shoulder can move in certain directions, so move it in all of those directions. Your knee, your hips, your ankles can move in certain directions. Move them in those directions and strengthen them in those directions, and that's how you're going to do the best you can to prevent yourself from becoming injured, from getting tight, from, eventually downstream losing the ability to move, which is kind of the crux of all this, right? It's about preventing against that. Crazy shit's going to happen in your life. Hopefully it doesn't, but it might. You want to be as prepared for that as possible. Now, I'm saying all these things, and I'm saying that I still pick up little injuries here and there. My body is like, I'm one of those, the athletes like, oh, that guy's a piece of glass, always gets injured. That's me. It never happens in the gym. It always happens doing other stuff. But my injuries are less severe than they would have otherwise been because I'm stronger, because I take care of my body, because I train through full ranges of motion and prepare myself for these things. If I wasn't doing that, the injuries would be worse. And this is the thing that is difficult for some people to wrap their heads around. It's like, oh, you get injured, these things happen, you can't control everything. And you're right, you can't control everything. A strong, mobile, healthy person is going to do better in the face of catastrophic accident than a person who's not strong, mobile, or healthy. That is the thing to remember. And this goes like all the way up with health. People say that, being lean, eating healthy, taking care of yourself, not drinking, not smoking, all this stuff, it doesn't even really increase your lifespan. Or like you could get some disease, you get hit by a bus tomorrow. And they're correct. Like you could do all those things, but you're preparing yourself the best to give yourself the best chances of survival and thriving should something bad happen to you. And that is the take-home message here. So the things I do now: 1, listen to your body, understand your body. 2, full range of motion training, full strength training. And 3, push yourself hard when you can, and because something is always going to happen. So when you have the ability to, push hard when you can, and give yourself the best chance for success. Now, one thing, I was trying to think if there was like anything that I would do differently if I could go back, and what's it called? The painkillers is one thing for sure. I would try and take. I didn't take that much, but I would try and take even less of it just to make that physical and emotional memory a little bit less fuzzy. I would still do the surgery because it was definitely necessary. I want to say that I'd be like more aggressive at my rehab, but I don't even know if I could have been more aggressive at it, really. I would, if it had to happen again today, I'm way more prepared and I know way more about training and all these things. So my training leading up to it, which I don't really remember what it was like, but all of those things would be different and like a little bit more dialed because I'm just better at that stuff now. So that's probably the thing I would pay attention to more. Nutrition, I wouldn't even really change anything. My nutrition was fine. So there's not really a whole lot that I could say that I would do differently. And it was unavoidable, the whole thing, because it was mostly just like a structural issue for me, why I needed this. It wasn't like I wasn't taking care of myself or, anything that I could control. It was just, that's how my knees were, in a kind of a susceptible position where the kneecap is sitting too high and the groove is too shallow and all this stuff that's just how you grew. So there's nothing I really could have done to prevent it other than, certain other types of injuries are a little bit more preventable because you could have strengthened yourself a little bit more. They're a cause of weakness or poor training and stuff like that, which we won't get into. But so I wouldn't say that there's like a whole lot that I would do differently, honestly. To start to wrap this up, because we're almost 45 minutes in here, and you're probably sick of listening to this this ramble. I think that my thoughts have been, always in the solo episodes is when I find myself, it's funny to say, find myself rambling. Of course I'm rambling because I'm only talking to myself. But sometimes my thoughts are a little bit more scattered. But I think I've done a pretty good job of kind of keeping this on track. To start to wrap this up and sum up some of these things. This experience in my life, it was life-changing in the way that, every experience changes your life, but it was life-changing in that this is kind of what led me down this whole path. Yeah, it was tough. It was a really rough time in my life. And I'm not trying to say that like, oh, my life is so hard, I don't want anyone to feel bad for me. None of that. Like, this is just, it was a hard thing in my life and everyone's heart is different for them. So enough, like none of that. It was a really hard thing for me to come through. Now, I also learned a lot from it it led me down to this deeper appreciation for the ability to move, for human movement, strengthened my interest in the human body, how it works, how to make it work better, how to make it stop breaking, all of these things that I use today and kind of frame the way that I think about things. It made me mature in my understanding of movement and fitness and health and what the deeper meaning of these things are. It's not just about big biceps, although that's freaking awesome. It's not just about big biceps. It's also legitimately about being able to put your own pants on at any stage of your life. It led me to becoming a trainer. It led me to, and all the things that led me to. So when we think about, like, you know, I went through a hard thing in my life, or I went through any negative thing in your life, and we talk about regret or maybe choices that you've made or things that you do differently, you always have to frame it, I think, on like, well, all of the things that you've done, all the choices that you've made, all the things that have happened to you got you to where you are today. And if you like where you are today, then it's kind of a good thing that those things happened. If I never had this surgery, there's a very high chance that I would have never had this podcast. You wouldn't know my name, which is not that important. But if you've learned anything from me, you would have never learned that thing from me. I probably wouldn't be a trainer. There's a chance I still would have become a trainer. So it can't even be just the surgery. It's got to be like all of the knee stuff, because I was already kind of on that path, but the surgery really like solidified all this stuff. But like, I probably wouldn't have been a trainer. Definitely wouldn't have been a trainer in the way that I am now. I would have been very different, maybe worse, maybe better. I don't know, but I think I'm good at what I do now. In the way that I frame things and the way that I teach things and the results that I get from my clients and all that stuff. There's a lot of things that wouldn't have happened. And so when you think about regrets, you always got to compare it to, well, the thing that I went through that was hard, that sucked, that was a bad decision, that was whatever, negative, got me to where I am today by some roundabout way. So if you like where you are today, then you like the things that happened to you. But this is really why, this whole story, this is why I care so much about fitness and strength training. And it's because being able to move is just the most basic of human freedoms. There's a lot of, people talk about freedom from the government and politics and economic and, all this stuff. Like, literally none of that matters if you can't even walk by yourself. If you can't go to the bathroom by yourself. You can't put your t-shirt on by yourself. You can't put your pants on by yourself. Like, none of that other stuff matters. So that's why I care so deeply about this. And that's why I'm extremely driven in my pursuit to help as many people as I can to become a trainer, to get on the front lines of preventing disease and dysfunction through strength training, through nutritional interventions, through regular exercise outside of strength training as well. This is the thing that keeps me going. Like, I've had some great business success, some great impact and influence, if you will, so far, but the goal is always way bigger. And none of that would have happened without this experience in my life. And even in the times when things haven't been going so well, and when, business wasn't doing so well and things weren't looking good, and the early days of the podcast when, like, basically no one listens, and, you post on Instagram and no one likes it, and these little things which seem very small, but like extrapolate them over weeks and months and whatever. And even now, you have periods of time. There's a month that goes by where, hey, this wasn't a great business month. I'm not really making that much of an impact. I'm just not hitting, and it's not really working out with my clients. It's not like things are not working out. It's like, this is the why. This is my why. This is why I keep going. And this is why I've been able to be successful, because it comes from such a legitimate, genuine place of my personal experience. And not that anyone will have that experience, but people have experiences where their fitness holds them back in their life. And to a degree, that was my experience. And I know deeply what that feels like. And that's why I'm so strong on these things. So I'm getting a little, treating this a little bit too much like a personal reflection rather than a podcast now, I think. So I will wrap it up here. But all that to say is this: listen, if you have a body that works, be thankful for it. Be grateful for it. Improve it. Strengthen it. Never take it for granted. The best reason to move is because you can. If you're ever stuck, please reach out to me. Please reach out to someone. Find ways to make your body work better. Don't let things slip. If things are starting to not feel great, when your weight's starting to creep up, your back is starting to hurt a little bit, if these things are starting and you're relatively young, it's not just going to magically get better. Learn from our parents and grandparents and people like me who were injured and have had these things taken away to say that, hey, you got to do something about this. This is not, it's not about having a six-pack for summer. That's fucking easy. That's not difficult to do. That's just a few weeks of discipline. That's really easy. It's being able to enjoy your life as much as you can. These are things that matter. So you need to take this seriously. And it's not that hard. It just takes a little bit of thought, a little bit of guidance, and there's plenty of people to help you. So if you have questions, if you notice that things are starting to slip, please reach out. I'd be happy to work with you. I'd be happy to help you and really take you on this journey. And it sounds extreme or maybe hyperbolic, but I don't think it is. That training and physical fitness saves lives. If I would have not been able to get through that and be able to move again and be able to train and play sports and do things again, like, who knows what would have happened. Like, physical fitness saves lives. So we'll leave it at that. I appreciate you for listening. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for being here on this whole journey with me, and coming along with this ride, for this ride with me. I hope that in some way my experiences and the things that I've learned helps you. Please reach out to me if you ever need help. I'm happy to help you improve your fitness and improve your life. So share the podcast, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and go outside. Be a good person. See you next time.